Hey, what's up, you beautiful people? So, starting from the README guide that's provided in the link, let's go ahead and set up this NAS RAID1 on a Raspberry Pi. Notice I'm just using the word NAS because it's like a past tense, whatever. NAS is just network attached storage. So, first thing to do is make sure that you have, well, we can read through this. So, current features, RAID1 configured with mdadm. And that's just the manager for the RAID setup. And then NAS configured with netatalk on AFP, which means, Apple filing protocol. That's what AFP is. It's not so important you know the details. You can look them up on your own. Minimum hardware requirements: a Raspberry Pi, micro SD card, and the adapter as needed, which I needed for inserting into my MacBook, and 2 USB thumb drives. They don't have to be the same. It's better in a way. That's only just because size, mostly. There's other reasons, but we're not going to get into all the weeds and the details here. The reason that it's best if they're similar sized is just because if you have similar size, you'll be able to utilize both fully. In other words, one disk, the smallest disk is the largest amount of data that can be stored on the RAID. And a RAID, if you don't know, redundant array of independent disks, just means that if one of the disks, in this case thumb drives, fails for whatever reason, corrupted data, yada yada, the other one has an exact copy of it. And you can do this with more than 2. So you could have as many of these mirrored RAIDs, disks, these mirrored disks, these redundant disks as you want. The only thing with RAID 1 is that it's slower. And there are other configurations, and I will have other videos on that. But for now, we're just doing the simple mirroring RAID 1, no striping. Let's see, so you'll need your computer, which I'm using right now. Which, desktop or laptop. You'll need a router and a modem. The reason you need the connection to the internet is just because there's some package management and updates, and you need to download this stuff and look at this. So I'm assuming you're using the internet. And you'll need an Ethernet cable to connect from the Raspberry Pi to the router modem setup. Basic or minimum software downloads on your computer is just Balena Etcher. You could do it using the command line entirely, but that's out of the scope of this tutorial, okay? Let's see, what else we got here? Let's just adjust that camera. Okay, so on the Raspberry Pi, you're gonna have to install mdadm and netatalk. That's it. So, step 1. Now this is if you don't have a operating system already running using Raspberry Pi operating system. You could probably do this with any Linux because they are very similar, and I will be adding more videos for doing NAS RAID setups on different operating systems. But for now, really basic, pretty cheap, bare bones stuff here. So first thing you do is you want to go ahead and click on the link, or just go to their website if you don't trust the link. It's spelled out there for you, raspberrypi.org, downloads Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to click on that, and there's pictures that show you where you need to go. Okay, whoops, I need to go back because I wanted to open up a new window. So open up a new window, and there you go, because you still want to have the tutorial README open. And here's some information on their website, raspberrypi.org. We're using the light version because we don't need any graphical user interfaces. No GUI is required for this. So Raspbian Pi OS 32-bit Lite is what they're calling it. And download the zip. Now I already have this downloaded, so I don't really need to do this, but I'm doing it for your sake. So it downloads, takes a little while. You can honestly exit out of that window, get back to here. And yeah, so here are the kind of pictures to show you which one to look at, which one that you want to select. Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit Lite. And while you're waiting for that to download, you can honestly just go and download the Balena Etcher, which is a software for flashing operating systems and other things. So what we're going to do is, we could follow the instructions step by step, so let's do it that way. Download this, right? So download it. I already have this downloaded as well. But I'm just going to go through it with you guys. Close out of that. And those are downloading. They're taking however long they're going to take here. Okay, so one of them's done. And now you want to connect your micro SD to your computer, and I'm using an SD to micro SD adapter like this. I didn't really show you how I put that together. It's very straightforward. Like, I wouldn't worry about it. There's probably tutorials on how to do that. And as you can see, it's put into the laptop like so. I will actually kind of show you how that's done without showing too much private information here. I don't know if you can really even see what I'm doing here. Let's see. How easy is this? There we go. So it goes in the slot just like that. Make sure it's nice and snug. Alright, okay. So back to there. Okay. It's connected. There's that picture that shows you, and then you open up Balena Etcher. So I just use Spotlight, so you can hold Command, press Spacebar, Balena Etcher, open that up, and you'll see the window pop up. Select an image, and I'm just going straight to my downloads, and there it is. So RASP iOS Buster ARP blah 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 blah. That's the one that we want to use. That's the image. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that. Now there's a whole installation process for Balena Etcher. It's very straightforward, so I'm just not gonna go through all that. I'm just gonna kind of pretend like you did that already. Sorry if that's too confusing. But now that Balena Etcher is ready to go, here it is, and then you want to select the right card. To write to the right disk. In this case, well, it's an SD card, micro SD card. Now, to me, I already know what it is. I know the size. It's 32 gigabytes. SD card, reader, media. The location is dev disk 2. I know that, but I can double check that by going into going into disk utility. So bringing back the Spotlight. Check out disk utility, and then I can see that this thing, what that wasn't there already, is here now. And so I already did this a few times. Yours might be blank. There might not be anything there. I wouldn't worry about it. Just make sure you're identifying the correct disk, the correct micro SD, the thing that you're trying to flash, because otherwise you could end up flashing your hard drive, and that's not good. So here, this is my hard drive. Do not want to flash this. And this is the Apple SD card reader media as my computer is seeing it as. Now it's pretty hard to mess this up with Balena Etcher, just because it's not gonna select your local hard drive unless something weird's happening. So just keep that in mind. That's why I'm kind of hanging on this, because it's very important. So I'm gonna press continue, and then go ahead and flash it. So, oh yep, I have to type in a password. So I type in a password. You might not be prompted for a password. It kind of depends on the configurations you have. And if you look here on the disk utility, you can see that there's something's happening with this. And then here, 15%, 16%, 17, yeah, it's flashing. And that'll take, probably 5 minutes at the most. It really doesn't take too long. So we'll go back here to the instructional. Right, so same thing as I just said. Don't mind the Spanish. I'm trying to learn Spanish, and I figure if I keep toggling between a Spanish desktop and a US English desktop, then it'll be easier. Anyways, total sidebar. So we did this step here, selected that in the right drive, as you can see. Okay. And then, yeah, these are all the things that I was talking about. Going to disk utility, making sure you're looking at the right disk or drive. The micro SD card is a disk. I know you don't think of it as a disk, but it's a drive or a disk. More instructions here, just talking about the size. These are all things I just talked about, and you can look at the instructional on your own. Pause the video if you feel like you need to look over the same stuff. It's totally fine. So once the flashing is complete, which it just completed, go ahead and eject it. So I can just exit out of Boolean. So there's no reason to have that open anymore. I'm going to go back into disk utility, just because this is an easy way to eject it. And I kind of, I'm toggling back and forth. It doesn't want to let me select the eject here for some reason, unless I'm just that colorblind I can't see it. So I'm going to go down here and hit eject. Okay, and now I'm going to pull out the SD card after it's ejected fully. It's out. Okay, same way that I put it in before. Do that. Okay, putting it back in. Right, that's the reconnect micro SD to your computer and open up the shell. So as you can see, it's in there now. It has this boot in it, and this is really easy. So open up the shell. So I'm gonna use Spotlight again. Type in terminal because that's the one that I'm using as a shell. Very, very easy, straightforward. So all I have to do is look at the next piece of instruction down here. Create SSH file by typing the below command. I guess I should have said following the instructions. Still working on how to write up documentation. I'm just going to copy this. And keep in mind, depending on your file structure, this is subject to change. So before just going in there and doing it, I would look at, do you have these things in there? So one way to do that is to just do cd, change directory, / which is root, okay? Volumes, this is case sensitive. And then I'm tabbing out, so I can type a letter or a few letters and press the tab key, and it'll auto-populate, autofill the rest of it. Really easy admin tip just to get through and navigate through the command line interface. And there you go, so I can see the boots there. I'm going to go into it, I'm going to ls, and it lists out what's in there. I would pwd, that's present working directory, but I'm kind of working on keeping the PII secretive, personally identifiable information. I'm just trying to make it, that's a total sidebar. It's not really that important to this discussion. The point is, don't put your information out there if you don't need to. And that's why you can only see the $sign. Your terminal will probably look different. It might have your first name, last name, @ symbol, and then the name of your computer. There's various ways it could happen. The best way to test if you're in, you're able to control the command line interface is just pressing ls, typing ls like this, and then wherever you're at, it'll propagate that for you. It will show what's listed in the directory that you're in. I know that's not very concise there, but the point is, it's working. This is how it would look if you were inside it. You don't need to be inside of the boot. In fact, you don't want to be inside of it when you're ejecting. So what I'm going to do is cd, change directory, hyphen, or tac, which will just bring me back to the previous directory, which is my user account. So I'm there, and now I'm going to put this command in, touch / volumes boot sh. So touch basically says if this file exists, SSH, then just kind of interact with it. So it means that it'll modify it. It'll change the modified date if you look at it to reflect the current time. So I'll show you even what that looks like here. So touch it, and if it doesn't, which it does not, as you could see when I listed it out, there was no SSH file here. It's all these BCM 27 blah blah blah, fix up, all this stuff. There's no SSH file in here. So now I'm going to do that again, and then I just want to list out what's in volume, so I can do ls/volumes, or not what's in volumes, but what's in boot. And then, so if I ls that, it'll list out what's in the boot. And as you can see, now SSH is in there, which it wasn't there before. So just to demonstrate how touch works, I'm going to do ls tac L for long, which will list out the times and some other information. So SSH here, September 1st, 12:44, right? So if I do the touch volumes, blah 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 SSH again, like this, you'll see that the time will change from 12:44 to 12:45 now. So we'll list out again, and there it is. So it's a different time. Okay. Now, you know, depending on how accurate your clock is and what you're on, you might have weird times, like it might look like the wrong time of day, and that's just something you'll have to configure inside of whatever machine you're working on. Anyways, back to the tutorial. So we've done that part. We're not inside of the boot directory. So we can go ahead and eject. So I'm going to open up the disk utility, and I'm going to eject the whole thing. I mean, you could just eject the boot, but I think it's better just to eject the whole disk. Not sure what the difference is, and once I find that, I'll definitely tell you guys. So let's make sure that's the right step. Yep, so eject it. I'm ejecting it. It's ejected. Now I can take it out. Okay. So at this point, you can take it out. The micro SD, that's this piece. This is the adapter. Take this out, and you can put it into your Raspberry Pi, which I'm going to go do right now. And make sure that your Raspberry Pi is powered off. And when after you put this into the Raspberry Pi, you'll want to plug in the Ethernet. The reason I'm doing it like this is because I honestly couldn't figure out how to get a headless install for wireless connection of the Raspberry Pi. There is a way to do it, I'm pretty sure, but they kind of have some protocols to make sure that it's hard to do that with RF kill and some other things. Raspberry Pi does. So we'll be doing a wireless connection from this computer, my computer, or whatever computer you're on, to the Raspberry Pi. So you don't need to be physically connected to it. That's the whole point of this. The network attached storage requires no physical connection to the RAID, which is really cool. I mean, you just drag and drop files from the RAID to your computer, and from your computer to the RAID, which is basically like a cloud, except that it's under your control, no monthly subscriptions. There are security risks, you know, I did mention that in another video. So I'm gonna install this physically and hook it up over there, and then I'm gonna power it on. I'm also gonna make sure that, well, I guess I don't need to plug these in yet. We'll come to that step when we come to it. So everything's hooked up, my micro SD is plugged in, and now I'm powering on the Raspberry Pi. So here we are at 10, step 10, or number 10 in step 1, however you want to read this whole thing, right? Because step 1 is, wow, that's a lot of pictures. Step 1 is headless install of Raspberry Pi. So, okay, back to 10. Here we are. So from your computer, SSH into the RPi. So if you don't know how that works, the code is right here, and that's really all you need to know. And also, this, you know, both devices must be connected to the same network on the same subnet. That shouldn't be a problem unless you already know what you're doing or you've messed something up on your network, which is highly unlikely. Well, I mean, you might know what you're doing on the network side, but that you messed it up is highly unlikely. So just open the terminal back up, and now we're going to, wow, was talking about not having PII and totally have PII going on. Anyways, just copy that script in there. Oops, not that one, but this one. So SSH pi at Raspberry. Wow, SSH pi at Raspberry Pi .local. So the reason that is because the .local just denotes that it's a local. It's on the local area network. I don't really want to get into all the details. To be honest, I'm still learning myself. So you open that up, and it's saying, okay, so it's giving me this weird warning, and that's just because I've already done this. So if you have come upon that, then that's fine. You just need to,
This is why I've done this troubleshooting thing.
Pardon me here. Key.
Okay. Yeah, this is annoying. Definitely gonna be fast forwarding past this and probably cutting a lot of stuff out just because I got stuck here.
But essentially what's happening is I have done this a bunch of times, and I just forgot to eliminate the fingerprint here and make a new one, which I'm going to do. You're probably not going to be able to see this because I'm going to block this out because it has some sensitive information, sort of. Okay. Bear with me. Okay. I think I got it to. Yeah. I think I got it to work. Let's try it again. I'm going to clear out the screen here. Clear just means that it wipes out the terminal, so you don't the information's still there if you scroll up. It's just it makes it easier to read, basically. Okay, so here we go. This is what you want to see. The authenticity of a Raspberry Pi local can't be established, so it just doesn't know what this device is. It's new, essentially. Even if, like for me, I've done this a billion times, right? But it's a new machine. It's a new operating system. I'm not gonna get into all of that hashing and identification, but what you want to do here is just yes. Type yes. Okay, and then the password, which is Raspberry, so RASPBERRY. Wow. And it logs you in. There you go. So you're logged in. And I have this information here. I kind of skipped the part where you say yes. So I'm glad I put that in the video. Anyways, now definitely change the password. So I'm just gonna copy this. I know, easy peasy. So you type in their password, Raspberry, and then you type in, and then you make your own password, whatever that is. It could be, make it something secure, relatively secure, obviously. And then I'm going to also go ahead and change the host name. Now you can do it with sudo raspiconfig like so. And then you go down to, I believe it is, change. Wow. That's not really how I do it anyways, for the most part. So, okay, no, that's not even what we want. In any case, oh man. This is me just futzing around. It's not part of the scope of this. If you want to figure out how to change the host name with raspiconfig, by all means go ahead. I'm going to show you how I do it. So first I'm going to sudo nano, so super user do, that's sudo, sorry. And nano is an editor. I'm not sure if there's a meaning behind the name. There probably is. It's a text editor. And then etc, so root or /etc/hosts. So the first slash is the top level. It's the root. And the other slashes after that are just separators. So etc or etc, etc. I'm not sure what that stands for. I'm getting way into the weeds. So we're going to the hosts file. We're editing that, and as you can see, the loopback, which that is that 127.0.1.1, that's the IP of the loopback, basically just identifying itself. So we're gonna name that. I'm gonna name it, I don't know, cloud space, something silly like that, right? Doesn't matter what you name it. You name it what you want to name it. But keep this consistent. So I've named it cloud space. All right. And as you notice, nothing's changed here. This here at the beginning, whoops, right here, the pi is the pi down here is the user that we're logged in. The @ separates the user, so it's user @ host. Right now, it's user @ Raspberry Pi. That's what the default host name is. Right now, we're changing the host with sudo and nano. So now, and you'll notice that nothing's changed, and that's because we have to reboot it for these changes to take hold. And this one is pretty straightforward. There's just nothing really going on, so I'm just gonna delete all of this. I just held Control, pressed K. That swiftly removes everything on that. In Nano, there's it cuts. You can see down here. So Control K is cut, and then uncut is that, right? Anyways, getting into the weeds once again. So I called it cloud space, so we're gonna name it cloud space, just right there. That's how easy that is. Hold Control O to save, or hold Control press O to save or write out, and then hold Control and X to exit. It's all listed there in the bottom. That's what's really nice about Nano for first-time users, and there's some pretty good documentation on it online as well. So now all you have to do is sudo reboot. So I'm gonna sudo reboot. There it goes. It's closed out. Now I'm back in my computer. That's why you see this little $sign. That's just how mine looks. Yours will look different. And give it a sec. You can watch it. If you have a extra monitor, you can plug it in and watch that progress happen. And if you have a keyboard and monitor, you can just plug those directly in and do all the setup that way. But I just like being able to do it here, and also because it's UK, so you have to change the key layout if you're like me and you're an American, or a United States American, and we have different ways of typing, different key layouts. So now we're ready to go to step 2. I'm pretty sure that it's good to go. I'm going to log back in, so this will be different. So instead of SSH pi at Raspberry Pi.local, it'll be SSH pi at cloud space, and it might be .local. We'll see. So okay, so we'll try .local. There we go. Okay, so that's logging us into our Pi, and it's asking for a fingerprint. This is because it's a new name. So our local host, the computer we're working on to do all this setup, is just unsure of what that device is, the Raspberry Pi. So I'm gonna type in yes again. And then I have to type in the password, because I made a password that's different than Raspberry. And now you can see it says Pi at cloud space. Cool, right? Clearly I did not add a certain little detail in here about SSHing. The scope of this wasn't really to be about SSHing. It's more about the setup of RAID1 using a NAS connection with netatalk. As I'm not saying that right, but the point is I'm going to make a better tutorial in the future. That's what the point is. Alright, so we're here. I'm going to clear out this just to get this mess out of my face. And so first step, log into RPi, done. So update and upgrade. And copy this one-liner. You're more than welcome to read through what it means. Super user do on each one of these, because you have to be a super user. The TAC Y, the flag there, that just means you're saying yes to prompts that are saying, do you really want to install this, essentially. I mean, you can read through the prompts if you want to, and just don't have those flags there. It's completely up to you. apt-get is a package manager. That just means that it helps with dependencies, helps download dependencies onto the Raspberry Pi. So apt is advanced packaging tool set, I think. I'm not sure why -get. I know that there's apt and apt-get. I think apt-get is just a more user-friendly version. Don't quote me on that. The update is just to get a current list of all the repositories of updatable things for this particular operating system, and then any other software tools that you might have, whether it's Vim or Nano, yada yada. I'm sure that a lot of you techies know what I'm talking about. And then this other part of the one-liner here is just to install mdadm, which is for creating the RAID. So I copied that, and then I am putting it in here and running it. And there it's going, it's getting the repository, looking at all the different releases that are available. So it has a current list of that, and then it's going to go ahead into this next line and upgrade. Okay, so now it's done. Cool. So now we need to connect both drives to the Raspberry Pi. It's pretty straightforward. If you have more than one, you can go ahead and do that. The scope of this tutorial does not cover more than one drive. Alright, they are plugged in. And like it says here, make sure there's no data on there that you need. Okay, take anything off of those that you don't need. We're gonna wipe everything out. So put it on your desktop, whatever you need to do. Don't have any data on those disks, on those thumb drives. Okay, capiche? Understand? Right, where was I? Okay. So we're gonna identify the drives. LSBLK, it's like list. Anyways. So here's the command. Okay. Yours won't look like that. Mine looks like that because I've just been doing a lot of RAID stuff. Look at the picture here. This is what it'll look like when you do it. I'm not sure. I thought I wiped it out, but apparently I did not. I did not. Yeah, that's why. Okay, so when you configure a disk for RAID, that disk will be configured for RAID, regardless of what machine you plug it into. Is at least what I'm getting from what just happened here. So lesson learned. It's not a big deal because in the next step here, I'm going to be wiping them out. So as you can see, yeah, like I wrote it here, like one is smaller, one's half the size of the other one. It's fine. It just means, like I said before, that the smallest one, the largest one is not going to be able to store any more than the maximum amount that the smallest one can. If that doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. It's written down. I'm trying to explain it. It's a pretty simple concept, but anyway, so we're gonna wipe it out with zeros. You could wipe it out with something else if you wanted to. It really doesn't matter. This is just easy and probably fastest. So as it's saying, let's grayed out all this stuff, blah blah blah. But okay, we're targeting these drives, so SDA and SDB. Disregard this part down here. You can refer back to this here. This is what it will probably look like for you. And remember, when you're copying this, don't just paste it and play. Like, you have to paste it in there, or you could write it out too. And then this is going to be A, because that's this one. And keep in mind, like, when you're doing these kinds of things with data and disks, you really want to make sure you're targeting the right disks, because if you don't, you could write over data. Since this is a Raspberry Pi and it has nothing special on it, and I'm doing this for a tutorial, it's fine. But if you have some special files on something, don't play around with this unless you really get it. And so if you keep it in the scope of this and you only use it the way that I'm telling you to, it should be fine. So yes, the lights, we'll just leave the lights on there. It will be fine. Okay, just don't go using DD, which I think is disk dump, everywhere you want to. Okay, use it in this use case and then do your own reading so you have a better understanding of it. So I'm going to do that for this one. That's this first guy, SDA, and it's going to wipe that out. Oops. I have this reversed and I uploaded this to GitHub. That's great. Okay. Well, I'm gonna fix that, but I had my status and progress reversed. Okay, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you do that here. I will also ensure that I have that correctly labeled in the GitHub file after I finish this video. So yeah, status equals progress, so that you can see that's going there on that one. And as instructed here, you can open up, yeah, this is what the output should look like. You can open up another terminal. Let's see, where did I write that? Yeah, right here. So you can open up another terminal and have them both getting wiped so you save time. So I'm gonna do that. I'm holding command, pressing T. This is on a Mac, so I'm obviously not logged in. So I'm gonna have to log into the Pi. So I'm gonna have to log back in with SSH. Cloud space is what we're calling it. Okay, and it has to be .local because basically the DNS, it's not being recognized. I think DNS, or maybe the DNS server, the domain name system is not recognizing that, so you have to use the .local. And now we can log. Crap, deleting that. Okay, now we can log in using the right password and use this command, but instead of SDA, it's going to be SDB. Because I don't know if you saw here, but that's the name of this one. So SDA is being done here, and it's kind of out of the way. There we go. Done here, and then SDB is down here. And there it goes. So one's smaller than the other. Let's see. SDA is the small one. SDB is the large one. Twice the size, basically. There's other ways you can kind of monitor this project progress. I cannot believe I mixed that up. So just keep in mind this is going to be switched because this is not right. It's not progress equals status. It's status equals progress. It's not a huge deal. It's just a way to monitor how far along it is. And here's just some explanations of what's going on. BS is bit size, I believe, or block size, maybe. I think it's block size, actually. So that's 1 megabyte, I believe. It could be megabyte. I'm not entirely sure. Well, for the 50th time, the scope is not all encompassing and exhaustive. So yeah, this is what we're seeing right now. Something that looks like this, and once it's done, it'll look like this. I am going to open up another one, another shell, and log into the Pi, and I'm going to observe through this thing called top. So top, which I don't have in the tutorial. It's a useful command. It just tells you the current, what's currently being used by the CPU. And so now I can just kind of watch that these are being used. So there's two root, the user root is using in two different shells, which I'm not sure where that's indicated that they're in different shells, but it's using DD, data dump or disk dump. I'm not even sure if either one of those are the right acronym. But that's what's being used there, and we'll just let that play out. Okay, so one just got done, I'm assuming. Okay, it's this. No, they're both still being used. Something just was being used harder. Anyways. Alright, so the first one is done. The smaller disk is done. And yes, it does say DD error writing. And that's just because, like it says, there is no space left on the device. But that just means that it went to the end. It ran all the way through, writing a 0 to each bit of the device. That's what this command does. If it's just, yeah, it's literally just writing zeros to every bit. Okay. And this one is about halfway done because it's a 8 gigabyte disk. So we can watch that. That'll be fun together. Okay, so now it's done. The other one is done, as you can see. I did have a little bit of an issue with, so this command, lsblk, just trying to figure out what's going on. I think it's because I didn't completely remove the RAID that I had set up before. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put this website into my well, that's troubleshooting, docs, some of my working solutions. There we go. Gotta give credit to people. So that's why I have a long list of sources. And then just add this line in there so that I know for the future that I missed something here. Oops. Come on. So yeah, full command for stopping there. I mean, this is not too important, but it might be if you want to do this a few times. Of course, you can poke around the internet, but just in case you don't want to, this is not part of the tutorial I have yet. Once I will eventually add more. And so right now, here to stop the RAID and remove it. So you have to unmount it first, identifying the right RAID. And you have to be a super user sudo, right? Then you stop the RAID, and then you remove the RAID. And I think that should be it. There might be another step. Anyways, let's get back to the tutorial. So here we are. lsblk. I mean, I did it like a billion times. You probably can see here, trying to figure out what was going on. It gave me this weird doodah. You probably won't come up with this problem, but if you do, now you know how to fix it for the most part. If you have trouble, obviously comment and or message me, and I can try to help you out. Screenshots are always a good idea. Try not to have any of your personal information on there. As much as you can. I'm gonna definitely do some security basics tutorials as well, but I'm still learning right now, so I'm not there yet. Alright, so now that that's all written, all done, and I have this output that we just saw, yeah, I'm just explaining why it says error. Okay, so now we can create the RAID. Step 6, right here. Go ahead and copy this. Now there's another one you can't just post and play. So you gotta put it in there, and then you're gonna want to change it to the right disks. So in my case, it's SDA and SDB, right? These are the ones. So if it looks different, it shouldn't. Just keep that in mind. And this verbose, I think, just allows us to see what's happening. This is what we're, so sets, arrays often start at 0. It's kind of a convention. Discrete mathematics and such. So MD, not sure what the MD stands for. Multi-disk maybe. And this is the first one, and it's a level 1 RAID with two devices, these two devices. Okay. Alright. Enter. And it's asking, you know, do you want to do this? And so you type yes. Yes, I do want to do this. And then it's done. Well, okay. It's not done. We can watch how far along it is by doing this command. If you didn't catch that, I just copied here watch, which allows you to watch the output of certain commands as they progress. Cat, which is concatenate, which is a way of displaying the string of output of a command. And then this proc mdstat, which is just the progress of that. So let's go ahead and watch this together. Let me first move down a bit. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and this is what it will look like. Let's watch it together. Alright, so now that's done. Get out of there, hold Control, press C. On to the next step, and yeah, it did look like this. You can check it again with just putting cat proc, or watch, either way, it'll bring it up. So now let's create the file system for the RAID. So I admit it. I went to a bunch of different blogs and just checked out a bunch of different documentation to create this README. They suggested using ext4, which makes sense to me because from what I've read in the past, that is common on Linux systems, and I think it has a lot of backwards compatibility. But that's for another video entirely. So let's get on with it. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this, and I'm just gonna double check that that's, you know, the right one. What am I saying here? The right MD, whatever that fucking stands for. I should have figured that out before we came here. Yes, it is. So MD0. We already figured that out in a different step. I was making a smoothie. Okay, I kind of spaced out a little bit. Anyways, so sudo make file system.ext4. I think the tac F is a force flag. You can put that in or not if you want to. I'm going to. I'm not worried about anything breaking. Okay. So yeah, there we go. It's doing its thing right now, so you don't have to do anything. Hands off here, just letting it create that file system. Cheers. That's a pretty damn good smoothie. There's a video about how I'm making the smoothies too. I'll link that into in here. Okay, so now we're done. Everything looks right. This is what the output should look like, and it looks, you know, relatively the same. There might be like minor differences. So we're gonna create a mount point with this. Now, if I'm going too fast, I apologize. I will try to slow down. Sudo make directory mkdir. I think the hyphen, the p flag, the hyphen p is like point, so make directory point mount point. And then the mount point is at root/mount or mnt, and then we're calling the mount point md0. So that's made. And remember, if there's no output, like here, that usually means it's good, because most output either is a message like this tells you something's happened, or an error. I know it might be a little bit ambiguous, but the point I'm getting at is that since no output happened after we did this, that's good. So now I've copied this, mount the array, mount the RAID array with this command. So I've copied that command, and this is the device, and this is the name of the mount point we just made. And I'm going to do that, and there's no output, so that means that it worked. Should mean that it worked. Now let's inspect it. Let's see what's going on. So I copied that command. I'm not entirely sure exactly what the flag means here, but let's see. We have an array of size 3.73 gigabytes or 4.01 gigabytes. I think I'm reading that correctly. They are different measurements. Think of it as kind of like the metric versus the US American measurement system. 2 RAID devices. There's a total of 2 RAID devices. I'm not sure what this redundancy here is. And then this, I read the used device size. I think that just means the size of the device that was used. I don't get this here. I have to do more reading. You can do reading on your own. But this looks good, so it's persistent. It's going. Clean state, which I'm pretty sure is a good thing. And again, I have done this and it's worked. So the proof of concept, prototyped out. I will tell you one thing though, it definitely got really hot. Not so hot that I was that concerned about it, but physically the device, the USBs, the thumb drives, and the micro SD card get pretty hot. They cool off really quickly when they're not getting current through them. And I read that's just because of the size too. So you could, when you're not using it, just have the device turned off. There's plenty of things you can do to make sure that it doesn't overheat. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this straight for like at least a month and see what happens, and just kind of mess around with data and see if anything gets corrupted, see if my house catches, my apartment catches on fire. Okay, so there's this resync policy. Now, all these details, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know all of them. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of details. It's good to read about this stuff. I'm always trying to read more and learn more. I think you should too. But the main things to take away here is that there's 2 RAID devices, and these are them. Remember these names: SDA and SDB. This is the path to those things, and they have an active sync. So everything looks good. This is the output I got when I did this initially, and as you can see, it's basically the same there. Okay, there might be a difference here in the UUID, and that's okay. This is me just kind of talking about that. So now we're at step 3. Install netatalk and configure NAS. Alright, so pretty easy here. Apt-get install netatalk. It'll take a second. Oh, okay. So I should have put that in there. You have to be super user to do this, so this kind of helps me figure out a couple of the mistakes I made. Super user do sudo apt-get install netatalk, and then it goes ahead and does its thing. And okay, you also probably want to add attack Y flag there. I didn't, so you can either just press enter or capital Y. So I'm just going to press enter and let us do this thing. That's the whole reason we have the Y flags. The hyphen Y is because it just lets it do that without having to ask us first. So there we go. It's loading up. It's installing netatalk. All right. So now that's done. We can go on to the next step. We're going to configure netatalk. So sudo, go ahead and copy that if you want to. So what's happening here is I'm using Nano and as a super user, and this is the full path to get to this configuration file, afp conf. Okay, so you just press enter and it puts you in there. And now I'm gonna go down to here. I'm just doing this just because this is how I did. Anyways, this is how I did it when I first did it. That's the point here. Notice these semicolons, those are comments. And if you don't know what a comment is, that's fine. A comment in the CS world, the computer science world, basically just means something that a person can read in a executable file, like software code or script, that won't execute any type of function. So you can either use that to what we call comment out, as all of these things are commented out. That means they're not going to do anything except for global up here. And you can also use it to communicate things, which I do that right here. So I'm saying semicolons are comments, comma, well, okay, semicolons are comments. Again, semicolons are comments. I'm just trying to let you know that that's not going to do anything. If you don't know what a comment is, that's all it is when we're talking about computer programming. It just means the compiler is not going to read it as code. It's just for us humans to communicate with one another or to temporarily stop a code from running. Okay? So I'm going to delete the comment areas, and there's a bit of white space, or in this case, black space. I mean, it really doesn't matter what it's space. There's just, you know, when you press the space bar, space. Okay. Anyways, getting that out of the way, and now I'm gonna name this exactly what I named it here, which is my RAID. I'm just doing that for my purposes. You can name it whatever you want to. Okay. So my RAID. And then the path to the RAID. So this part's important here. Path is equal to, I'm just going to copy this. Media, I'm calling the drive my RAID. Again, you can call this something else. Notice that there is no spaces. I'm using an underscore. You probably could use a hyphen. Just don't use spaces. When you're using absolute paths or paths in any way, when it comes to coding and scripting, you cannot use spaces unless you use quotes. Okay? And even then, it's kind of best practice not to use spaces, especially for stuff that you're going to use in codes. I can go into that in another video. I'm not going to go into that now, but just keep that in mind. So I've copied that, pasted it in here. It looks like this. Good, right? So again, I'm gonna save it with the control option and then enter. I kind of didn't mention that before, but you can see it pulls up here. File name to write, and it says the file with the full path, and it's just kind of asking me, do I want to do it? If I don't want to do it, I can press Control C. I've already saved it, so it's fine, but I'm gonna save it again. And then I'm going to exit, same deal. Except with the exiting, the Control X, it'll just take you out like it just did here. So now I'm back to where I was. We'll go down to the next step. Make the directory. Make the RAID directory. So we already, this isn't really technical debt, but you can kind of think about it like that if you've heard that term. It's a promise. Like I've decided that this is going to be the path. And then the shared part, that comes later, okay? But these are things that I've decided ahead of time. That's because I already did the legwork and I know how this is going to go. But that's kind of the best way I can put it right now. So now we're making that directory that we promised that we're going to use here in the AFP configuration file, if that makes sense. So I've copied this. Paste it in there, and now I've created that directory. If you want to check that directory is there, you can cd into it. You could list out the things in my in media. So, oops. Well, okay, that kind of shows you right there. I just auto tabbed it out, right? Auto completed it, which I already told you about. There probably is only that one thing in there. Yeah, there is only my RAID in there. Okay. That's fine. So now we're going to get the UUIDs. So I've copied this lsblk file system, I think is what the fs flag is for, and then this is a pipe, and a pipe's grep, which is a regular expression find tool. We'll go into that in another lesson too, but just keep it, just copy this, it's fine, okay? We're basically, grep is just looking for this string here and saying, you know, where is it? Because if I just did this by itself, matter of fact, I will show you what that looks like. lsblk file system. So that's just all of the file systems. We're not really interested in all of them. We only want to see a very specific subset of those, the ones that have to do with our RAID array. So now, and you can see it's highlighted too in red in this case, the search parameters. This is what I'm calling the search parameters, this grep after this pipe here. This bar is called a pipe. These, I'm going to stretch this out so we can kind of read this a little easier. These are the UUIDs, and you might notice they are a carbon copy of each other. They are exactly the same. And you'll notice that even though these devices are actually different sizes, the RAID partition, I think I'm using that word right in this case, is the same size, 3.4 gigs. I think that's gigabytes. Honestly, the measurements here kind of are confusing. The point is, that's not, don't worry about it. I'm gonna stop fumbling over my words. Okay. So we can copy that, and remember how we already logged into another one? So we can leave this up here, go over to our other tab where we're logged in, and just don't worry about all this. In fact, I'll clear it out of the way so we can just have a nice non-craziness going on. And we go to step 5. So we've done this, we go down to step 5. And now we're going to super user do. We're going to sudo nano. We're going to write with the text editor nano. Now, I'm sorry if this is like insulting your intelligence for people that are, you know, know how to use this. I'm assuming that anyone who's watching this probably doesn't know how to use these things as well, and that's fine. I like having stuff broken down to me Barney style. If you don't, that's cool. Fast forward, whatever. Read the docs. Well, the one doc, this. Okay. So we're gonna go into this, and you have to be super user to be able to edit this. Go to the bottom, as I have done here, and you can see, so here's another kind of comment here, this hashtag or pound symbol. So these things are not being ran. In fact, this is literally just a comment talking about a swap file. And we're going to add a new line. So what you want to do is add this. Now, this portion here, this string of like, oh my god, hexadecimal units is what it looks like to me, is going to be different, obviously, right? Because we just found out what ours is. So I'm going to go here. I'm still going to paste the whole thing in there. But now I'm going to go using the arrow key to navigate here. There's probably cleaner ways to do this, and if you're using Vim or if you know how to use this editor better, then you can do that. And now you're noticing I'm deleting all of these units, these hex units, whatever. Those characters, those chars. I'm trying to expose you to a lot of different terminology for similar things. And so we still have UUID equals, and then all this hoo-ha here. Okay. So what we need to do, as it says here, is copy this. Oops. And I kind of have this listed out of order, but yes, you want to copy this. Not this one in here. You're copying whatever one shows up. So I might not have made that very clear, but I hope it's clear now. This is the one you're copying, the one that you just listed out with this command. The lsblk hyphen fs blah 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 blah. Okay, so go ahead and copy that. That's important because otherwise it's not gonna know. I mean, this is my this is another attempt. This is just a random string that gets generated based on, I don't know, some algorithm, some hashing algorithm perhaps. So I've copied it in there, and now it's in there, and just like before, Control O, enter to save it, and then exit out of it. Okay, that part's done. So we copied it, and then we pasted it in there. Yeah, I did not make that very clear in this section. I'll rewrite that to be more clear. So now we restart netatalk. We can do it by just copying this command, sudo systemctl restart netatalk. So pasting in there, and quick restart, so it's restarted. And now we're going to go ahead and mount the A flag just means mount all. Since we only have the one RAID, we don't have to be very specific. In other use cases, obviously, you might be more specific, but not in this use case. So mount all, and okay, good, nothing's wrong, because we didn't get any output, right? And I know it's ambiguous. Sometimes you'll get an output, and that's a good thing, but sometimes you get an output, it's a bad thing, but it usually will tell you. But then as you saw up there, it can be a little ambiguous as well, like with the whole error writing thing. Anyways, so I'm copying this, so make a shared directory and then change the permissions. So first we're going to make the shared directory. So that's sudo make dir blah blah blah. So this is that same file path that we made this already. So we already have this part, the /media or the root media /my_raid, and now we're adding this part here. This is a new directory underneath, inside of, however you want to look at that and think about that, inside of my RAID. It's a shared directory, shared folder. So now that that's created, you can check it the same way I showed you before if you want to, but it's done. And now we're gonna chmod. So chmod, it's change modify or change modification. Basically, we're just changing the permissions to that folder. I should probably look into this more, and I will once I make a more encompassing tutorial and README file. But for now, to get us where we want to with this whole setup, that's all you need. It gives you the right permissions so that you can log into there, and it still will have a secure, password protected connection. You'll need to know the password to be able to get onto that shared file. So not anyone could just go onto your network and just log in. I mean, if they have the password cracker, maybe, but that would also mean that they'd have to be on your network. So that would mean that, if you have a shoddy password, I guess I'll quick sidebar here. So a lot of times when you have a router and a modem, the web interface, if you haven't logged into your web interface, it's really good to do that. The web interface will have a password and an administrator username. Those are usually, they're really easy to hack into. A lot of times it's just admin as the username and password as the password, okay? Right? So, it's a good idea to log in there and change it to something else, the password. Because once you're inside of the web interface, you can see what the WPA2, I'm assuming WPA2 Wi-Fi protection password is, which is bad. So, and you can also change a whole bunch of configurations. So if someone is near your Wi-Fi and they just want to fuck with you, they can just, assuming you haven't changed that the default permissions for the administrator of the router for the web interface, they can log in, they can see whatever you set as your Wi-Fi password, which obviously isn't that protected if you can just log in as an administrator. And then they could change the Wi-Fi password, they could do all kinds of just messed up stuff. So it's a good idea to inspect that yourself and check it out. Now this is a huge sidebar, but I think it's important and worth noting just for general safety. Like, just because you have a good Wi-Fi password doesn't mean someone can't just figure out what your administrator password is for the web interface of your of your router modem setup. Okay. I know it's very meandering. I'm gonna make a very clear demonstration of that and just show people how that works in another video. Anyways, so let's change those permissions. So we copy this sudo chmod 777 the 777's there. Okay, I can't even talk. I'm gonna just go ahead and paste that in there. Now remember, this will be whatever your path is named. So yes, the media /media is going to be there. Whatever this is going to be whatever you named it. If you're just following exactly along with me, it'll just be my RAID. Okay. Enter. No error output. That's good to go. We're almost done now. So we can check out, you recognize this command. So cat proc mdstat, but it'll show something a little bit different here. Oops. No, it won't show something a little different here. I'm tripping. But yeah, so this shows that there's nothing on there. And in this document, I had an example of showing that both of these separate drives we're actually storing data on the mirroring it. So, I mean, that's the whole idea of the redundancy. Yeah, it's great to have something that you don't have to plug into every time you want to put it in there, but what if it breaks? That's why it's RAID. So the NAS allows you to communicate through the network and drag and drop your files from your computer to the RAID in this case, and back to your computer from the RAID in this case. It could just be a single hard drive. I wouldn't suggest that, just because if it fails, then all your data is lost, for the most part. Unless you have some forensic skills I don't know about, right? Which you might. But this just shows you the difference. So here's when there's nothing on there, 0%, and you can see a number here, and then 36%. This is used, so how much is used? 0%, 36%, and then that's how much is left, right? So it's kind of inverse relationship there. Okay, so we've listed that out. We're all done. How do we verify this is working? How do we get into this? Well, I didn't even add that into the README, which is kind of stupid of me, but I'm going to show you here. So, okay, I think that's why. So here in network, one way to get at this, go to the Pi. No, that's not right. Okay, here. So, sorry guys. It's good that I'm doing this all the way through again. So, if you're on a Mac, you go to this network tab. If you don't already have this up, there's multiple ways to find it. I'm pulling up this preferences pane by holding down Command and pressing comma. That's the native way hotkey. That's the native hotkey for bringing up for bringing up preferences in Mac, in Apple file, in Mac OS. Okay. And let's see, is network even ticked on here? I mean, it's clearly right here. So I guess I need to add. Sorry guys, I'm failing you. Anyways, you want to go into network. You want to go into the name of your creation, okay? Cloud space, and then you're gonna go ahead and connect as. I know that's not very clear. Okay, so now we're connecting to it. It's giving me this as a native name. Type in Pi, that's the username, and then our password, and then we should log in. Perfect, so it's logged us in. Sorry about that fumbling there. I've just done this so many times that certain things were already pre-configured. That's another reason why I've done this project, is because I want to be better at documenting stuff, so that if I was to completely nuke my computer, I could just bring everything back to nominal, to how I have it operating. So what we did, one more time, went to network under locations, which you can find in the preferences. I believe, I'm not seeing network here, so I will look into that further. And then you go into cloud space. That's what we call the Pi, okay? You double click on it, or however you want to get in there. It's not connected. Okay, connect as. And then you type in the name, which, right now there's just the one user, Pi. You could change that, so whatever your user is. And then the password that you used to log in. And now you have access to the Pi and the shared RAID. SharePoint, that's the kind. I don't know if that's completely accurate, but that's just what the Mac is identifying it as. And then go ahead, double click and enter into it, and there it is. That's your RAID. So okay, now you can see it's like recognized it, and it'll probably stay in this dock. So let's see, is it still not showing up here in the preferences? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. And you can see it's ejectable, as well as the my RAID partition. So I'm gonna go back into it, and now I'm gonna keep this up, and I'm gonna open up another Finder window, and let's just go ahead and put a couple things just in there. So just these things, loading them up, they're getting copied. As you can see, it's getting copied in there. And let's just see if anything's even showing up now. Okay, look at that, 6%. So I wonder if we can watch that whole. No, it doesn't want us to do that. Okay, but now it's at 8%. So if you look down there, as I'm doing this command, it's increasing the percentage of use space. See F use and F available, and the F available is going down just as this is going up. So we're putting 1.94 gigabytes, or basically 2 gigabytes of data into here. And so now we're at 12% full for this RAID device. Now, obviously these are small thumb drives, and they're thumb drives, so there's not a lot of data that you can store on a thumb drive anyways. But if you can imagine with a hard drive, an external hard drive, a 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 10 terabyte hard drive, and you have a couple of those, you have 2, maybe 5, I don't know, I only have like a couple or something, I don't know. Anyways, you could store a lot of data redundantly. So that means that if one of them breaks, one of them fails, the hard drives, one of them fails, you're fine. You can just add a new disk to the RAID array, remove the fucked up one, pardon my language, and then you're good to go. It'll mirror over, and yes, it will take some time, especially if there's a lot of data on there. So that is another reason why using striped RAID is good. And that's also possibly one of the reasons why people don't like doing this on their own. There is more overhead management stuff that you have to do on your own, but it's fun to understand this, and I want to do this on my own. That's why I've done this, and the documentation's there. I hope you enjoy it. But yeah, as you can see, look, we're almost at we're probably gonna get almost over half. Well, maybe not over half. Well, yeah, because we have about 4 gigs of space available total, and I'm putting about 2 gigs on. So at the end of this, I'll have about half left. We're already at 33%, and we have like 6.6 gigs to go. That wraps it up. There was a couple mistakes in there. Please comment, subscribe, and Let me know how you feel. And if you have any questions, also comment. I don't know. Just make this video heavy. Make it sink all the way to the bottom of the algorithm, which in this case of my metaphor is a good thing. I'm just mumbling on because I really want to show you guys that this works. I mean, you can see there in the terminal, it's increasing in size as this is being added, and then you can see here these wheels. The wheels are turning, and this is almost done. So we'll finish it out. Okay, so now let's look at 50%. So yeah, half full. That's how much is left. 1.6 gigs. So those didn't take up much. 4 KB, 500 KB. But now these are on the RAID. Redundantly backed up these images, as well as these PDF things here. This Balena Etcher DMG and this IMG for RPi. These are things we all used, at least these two. And there's other crap I have on my computer, which I can back up now to my thumb drives. Let's see. What was I gonna show you guys? Oh yeah, downloads. Okay, so now I can take Smokey Mason. If you don't understand that, it's like Smokey the Bear. Anyways, so I'm gonna bring it from the RAID, and that was relatively fast. Obviously, this is a small file here. It's just a little tiny picture. But yeah, it's loaded on there. Now it's on my computer. So I have a copy. I mean, technically now I have 2 copies. I don't need this one that's in the downloads because I already have one on my desktop. But I have this one here on the RAID array. So that's it, folks. Hope you enjoyed. Hope I wasn't too confusing. Take care. Peace.